All right, Shabbos, say good morning, good morning. Let us begin a beautiful, beautiful daf ahead of us today. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors. Thank our TALMUD Torah sponsors for the month of Nissan. Paul and Kathy Pollack for dedicating all the Shimon Drushos this month in memory of Paul's parents, Shmuel ben Zechariah and Sarah bas Avraham, and to thank Shaindy and Avraham Kelman for dedicating all the Shum this month in memory of Avram's mother, Sarah Bryna bas Yehoshua Heschel. To thank our Day of Learning sponsor, Yehuda Buchwalter and Family, in memory of Usher Buchwalter, Zechariah, and the commemoration of the 78th anniversary of his liberation from Buchenwald. Incredible. To thank our Daf Yomi sponsors for today, Gregg Rachel Levitan, in commemoration of the 5th yahrzeit of Rachel's mother, Sylvia Schreiber. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the Neshama, Slav, and Aliyah, and the families in Nechama. And with that, let us begin. Today's Daf is Chaf Aleph 21. We are picking up in Meretz Hashem on 20b. Chaf Amud Beis. So let's just pick up again at the two dots, the second two dots up. V'hem omrim hotzi uha. We actually started this already yesterday. So this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22 lines up from the bottom. V'hem omrim hotzi uha. So remember again, this is talking about once the waters begin to checker, the Mishnah explains that the effects are really instantaneous. So they would say, quickly go ahead and take her out before she dies in the Beis HaMikdash. To which the Gemara says, my time, but what's the reason they have to take her out immediately? The Doma Mesa, because perhaps she's going to die. And obviously having a corpse in the Beis HaMikdash, in the courtyard, is not a good thing. To which the Gemara says, is that to say that you can't have a corpse in Machna Leviyah? Remember again, we ended off with this yesterday, that like the desert, so the Beis HaMikdash is structured in the same way. When we travel in the desert, there was Machane Shechina, which was the Aron. There was Machane Leviyah, which was the Levim surrounding the Aron. And then, of course, there was Machane Yisrael, which were the rest of the Shvatim. So too in the Beis HaMikdash courtyard proper, which is the other side of Shar Nikanor, that's the Machane Shechina. The outside of Shar Nikanor, which we'll call again the general courtyard, that's called Machane Leviyah. And the rest of Harabais and Yerushalayim is called Machane Yisrael. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. You're allowed to have a dead body in Machane Leviyah. After all, the Gemara says, not only Ketami Meis come into Machane Leviyah, but even Meis Atzmo Shene'emar Vayikach Moshes Atzmos Yosef Imo Mechitzasam. So ultimately, the pasuk says that Moshe Rabbeinu took the remains of Yosef with him. Now, remember again, we had this beautiful Gemara about Moshe Rabbeinu taking the remains of Yosef. We saw this during Chalamayid. And again, the Gemara says, Imo, what does Imo mean? Imo means V'mechitzaso, that where Moshe Rabbeinu traveled, ultimately the remains of Yosef traveled along with him. Where did Moshe Rabbeinu travel? Moshe Rabbeinu traveled in Machane Leviyah. So both you see over here that not only could someone who's Tamei Meis travel in Machane Leviyah, but even the Meis itself could travel in Machane Leviyah. Abaye says, Shema Tifros Nida. I'll say, if we have time, by the way, I'll share with you something truly beautiful about Atzmos Yosef. We'll come back to that in a little bit. If we have time today, beautiful idea by the Shlach Kadosh. In any event, so the Gemara says as follows. So the Gemara says, so therefore, it can't be that we're afraid of her dying. So what are we afraid of? Abaye Shema Tifros Nida. We're afraid that ultimately, again, she may become a Nida. She may menstruate. As a result of the fear of the situation, she may menstruate, and that type of Tumas Nida, could be potentially problematic in Machane Leviyah. So the Gemara says, well, so take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, Shema Tifros Nida, Agav bi'usasa damim Dimayim Hamarim, Vanida Vazav Bal Kari Asur Machane Leviyah. So we'll say we're concerned that as a result, ultimately again, of her fear of the water, she may come to menstruate. And again, remember, so that type of tumas nida or zav, zava, people who are tamei of that type of tumah are not allowed in Machane Leviyah. That's what we're concerned about. To which the Gemara says, Lememra, to be susa merafia, is that to say that fear, literally both say, fear loosens. That's what merafia means. Fear loosens, that in other words, that fear could cause a woman to menstruate. To which the Gemara says, in the Sivatis Chalchal Hamalka Ma'od. So it's actually a reference to Megillas Esther, that here the Gemara Masechus Megillah mentions that Esther was fearful of having to approach Achashverosh. Remember again, this service, she goes without permission. She was so fearful that ultimately, again, the fear caused her to menstruate. So Amarav, Shapir Sanida, I Vahanan Tanan, Charada Misalak Esdamin. But Rabbi say we have a concept ultimately that fear actually prevents a woman from menstruating. We've concept Meseches Nida, that when a woman is living in a state of fear, that fear could actually prevent a normal menstrual cycle. So which one is it? Does fear induce a menstrual cycle, or does fear remove a menstrual cycle, or prevent? To which, right, we had this, right, our joining of worlds. We have Rabbi Shmuel Silber and Meretz Hashem this week. Next week, it's beautiful. So we'll say, the Gemara says as follows. So good. To which the Gemara answers, this is fascinating. Pachda somis bi'isus samarafia. Shabbos said the Gemara actually explains that it depends on the type of fear. Literally, pachda somis, if you look at Rashi, pachda, pachad, what's pachad? Daiga she'ina ba pito. So I will say a worry that does not come about immediately. So in other words, we'll call it sustained fear. Sustained fear. An ongoing and sustained daiga. Ela do, I guess, shema yavo ivan. So I'll say really what it means is, it doesn't mean a sustained fear, it means anticipatory fear. Right? Fearing something that may occur, ultimately, again, somes es hamakar. Literally means causes the uterus to constrict, and ultimately, again, prevents the flow of blood. So, pachda, samis, anticipatory fear. Samis causes contraction, causes, again, the uterus to contract, and therefore for there to be no blood. Conversely, biusasa, Rashi says haba'a pitom, fear that comes about immediately. Kigonzu, for example, this is the water fear, for example, ultimately, mirafia, causes a loosening, ultimately causes the bleeding to occur. So I will say a very interesting distinction. Pachad tsamis, anticipatory fear, contracts, causes women not to bleed. Biusasa, kind of present fear or immediate fear. Immediate fear, literally again, haba'a pitom. That's right. Anticipatory fear versus, we'll call it sudden fear, all right, or present fear, present or unexpected fear. It's not really unexpected because it's happened, right? So present fear ultimately causes her to bleed. So therefore, again, interestingly enough, it appears over here that in the case of Sotah, we're concerned more about bi'usasa, which is like this immediate sudden fear, could cause her to become an ida, and therefore, again, they say quickly take her out of the Beis HaMikdash compound. I was very struck by this lashon over here, these two different types of fear. And perhaps, again, there's a profound life lesson in this as well. And maybe it's like this, pachad samis. What does it mean, pachad samis? It's not just a din in nida, it's a din in life. I will say, there are people who live life with constant anticipatory fear. Right? In other words, always getting nervous about what may occur. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Right? This could go wrong. And I will say, what's the effect of living life with anticipatory fear? Samis. You contract. You're frozen. You're paralyzed. Because if at any given moment you contemplate all the things which can go wrong in life, there's a limitless number of things that could just go off the rails. So if you live life with pachad, samis. You contract, you're frozen, you're paralyzed, and you can't do anything. Masha'en kain bi'isusa marafia. Rabbi say, what's bi'isusa? So bi'isusa, Rashi says over here, haba pitom. So bi'isusa perhaps means an approach to life where you just roll with it. Right? Whatever it is, right? Whatever is going to happen, pitom, whatever is going to happen immediately, okay, I'll deal with it as it comes along, right? I'll deal with it as it unfolds. And if you live a life ultimately, again, of bi'isusa, what happens? Merafia. What does merafia mean? Merafia means it's loose. Merafia means you find a way to navigate, you find a way to pivot, you find a way to move forward. Bi'isusa, live life with constant anticipatory fear about what may go wrong. Samis, contraction, paralysis, can't do anything. Bi'isusa, a willingness to just engage and encounter the challenges of life as they unfold. Merafia, you're loose, you're able to pivot, you're able to meet the challenges. Incredible idea from Chazal. Let's go back there. Yesh l'schus haisa tola. So let's remember again, if she had a schus, the schus ultimately again could go ahead and stave off the effects of the waters. So the Gemara says, money must nisin. Who's, and I remember also say, let's talk about the idea that the waters, that the schus could be tola for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So the Gemara says, whose opinion is this? Money must nisin. Lo Abba Yossi ben Chanan, v'lo Rabbi Elazar ben Yitzchak ish Kfar Daram, v'lo Rabbi Shmuel. It's none of these opinions. This sanyo, im yesh lo schos tol lo shlosh chadashim, kedei akaras obedivre Abba Yossi ben Chanan. So Rabbi Yossi ben Chanan says, if she has a schos, the schos could go ahead and delay the effects of the order for 3 months. What's 3 months? The amount of time it takes for a pregnancy to become visible. So Rabbi Elazar ben Yitzchak ish Kfar Daram omer tes chadashim, not 3 months, but 9 months. Shene'emar v'niksa v'nizra zera u'lahalon hu omer zera ya'avdena yisupar. Zera aray l'saper. Fine. Rabbi Shmuel says, Shnei masar chodesh, 12 months. V'afa pi she'en rayi l'davar zechat Rabbi. So this last piece is absolutely incredible. Where does he get 12 months from? So Rabbi say this is based on a story in Daniel. So the backdrop to this is the Navi Daniel says to Nebuchadnezzar, there is a divine decree that you are going to be punished. Nebuchadnezzar's punishment, by the way, is that ultimately, again, he suffers some type of breakdown that leads him to think that he's an animal, and he ends up living with the animals. Daniel says to Nebuchadnezzar, you could effectively stave off this decree if you engage in chesed. It's incredible, right? If you take care of the poor, the Jewish poor, you could stave off the decree. That's the pasuk Gemara is quoting over here. D'chsiv lahen malka yishaper alecha v'chitecha b'tzedaka perok v'visicha b'michan inyan tapov chaf aleph hein tehevi arka l'shal vaseich. So again, Daniel says to Nebuchadnezzar, if you go ahead and you engage in chesed, you could prolong. That's what it means. Arka shal vaseich. You could prolong a sense of tranquility for yourself. And how long does it work for Nebuchadnezzar to stave off the effects of this decree? He staved off the effects of this divine decree, ultimately for what? For 12 months. For 12 months. Well, so if you take a quick look at Rashi, first Rashi and Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph, Rashi says, Hein tehevi arka l'shal vaseich, va'az tehei orach zman l'shlomeich, shlo yavo alecha paranos. Right? So Nebuchadnezzar, there was a way to stave off the divine decree. Listen to this. Every single day Nebuchadnezzar would gather the Jewish poor. Now remember again, why are they poor? They're poor because he destroyed the Beis HaMikdash and he exiled them. Yet what? V'yaf Daniel k'shiyasiu eitzazu lekach niskavein shiras Yisrael bagola b'chazron ala psachim. This is incredible. So Daniel says to Nebuchadnezzar, if you take care of the Jewish poor, you could stave off the divine decree for some amount of time. And Nebuchadnezzar, to his credit, ultimately went ahead and did so. So again, there's so much to talk about in each of these Gemaras, but just to point out the power of Chesed, the absolute power of Chesed, that even if there is a divine decree that is hovering over an individual, at the end of the day, Chesed has the ability. I will say, when you live a life that is not about yourself, and a person lives a life that is focused on others, the ability to become a Baal Chesed, literally, we'll say, if it could work for Nebuchadnezzar to stave off a terrible divine decree, then imagine what Chesed could do for each of us in our respective lives as well. Absolutely incredible. How long did it stave off the decree for? To which the Gemara says, 12 months. 12 months. Right? 12 months it went ahead and it staved off the decree. We'll say, by the way, it also tells you that what's the power of chesed? So we'll say a lot of times in life we get ourselves into bad situations because of bad decisions we've made. Right? Sometimes I find myself in a bad spot because of life circumstances. Sometimes I find myself in a bad spot because of poor decisions I have made. The power of chesed is not only the ability to stave off a divine decree, but the power of chesed is the ability to help you back out of bad decisions that you yourself have made. It's an incredible, incredible idea. So how long did it stave off the divine decree for Nebuchadnezzar? 12 months. Therefore, I will say, again, the Gemara is suggesting that maybe if the Sotah has a schus, ultimately, again, this schus could help her for up to 12 months. Rabbi Shmuel Silber says, Good. The Olam Rabbi Shmuel. So we'll say in reality this Mishnah reflects the Rabbi Shmuel. Va'ashkach kra da'amar vitani. So ultimately again Rabbi Shmuel found the pasuk. What was the pasuk? To save Ka'amar Hashem al shlosha pishay Edom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says ultimately again for the three sins of Edom. Ultimately again I'll give them a little bit of time. So we'll say the Gemara. So Rabbi Shmuel darshans three sins. Maybe again a reference to 3 years, and that's where the Mishnah gets our idea of up to 3 years that a schus could be tolala. So I say, I don't understand why does Rabbi Shmuel go ahead and discount the power of this particular pasuk? Again, it seems to be a good raya. Perhaps again I will say, since ultimately again he's bringing a pasuk from Edom, maybe when it comes to the Ovdei Kochavim, maybe at the end of the day when it comes to idolaters, so perhaps again HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't hold them to the same level of accountability. Take a look at Rashi. Dilma mifkad dina alayhu ein memarim min hashemayim lifkol avonosam aleihem. So I will say, by the umos cholam, the nations of the world, Hashem does not exact retribution from them as quickly as he does for Klal Yisrael. We'll say a very profound Gemara. By the nations of the world, Hashem does not punish as quickly. So therefore, again, maybe that pasuk that he's quoting, which is by Edom, is not such a good pasuk. Again, commercial. That's why again it's not an explicit drasha, but ultimately again it's a remez. We'll say, but this last piece is so profound as well, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs to exact punishment from Klal Yisrael. Right? That when we do something wrong, ultimately punishment is exacted. Why? That's for our benefit. It's for our benefit because so much better to go ahead and have judgment measured out against us in this world, so that whatever iniquity and whatever culpability there is, let it be done with, so that Meretz Hashem, it paves the way ultimately, again, nationally and individually, for a beautiful Olam Haba. Incredible. The Gemara goes right to Vihish, Schus, Tola Gimel Shanim. So we'll say, so remember, again, there could be a Schus that ultimately suspends judgment for up to 3 years. To which the Gemara says, Schus Demai. So we'll say, so what type of Schus? Right? So we've spoken about the idea of perhaps where we find a scriptural allusion to this idea, but Lamaisa, practically, what type of schus could stave off the effects of the water? Ilema schus to Torah. So what do you want to say? Maybe it's the schus of the fact that she's learned Torah. Well, that's hard to understand because ha'inu tzivah va'osehi. We'll say a woman is not obligated in Talmud Torah. Right? So it would be interesting to say that a particular schus that she's not obligated in would be the very thing that would stave off the effects of the water. Ela schus de mitzvah. Rather, it must be that it's schus of a mitzvah. In other words, it doesn't have to be a particular mitzvah. Rather, what the Mishnah is saying is, if she has amassed some amount of positive spiritual activity, that activity, we'll call it mitzvah, has the ability to stave off the effects of the water. To which the Gemara will say is an incredible Gemara. It will say, is a mitzvah that powerful to save one, in this context, to save a woman from Sotah, from the effects of the Sotah waters? And in general, does a mitzvah afford that level of protection? Vatanya, Rabbi says, incredible. We learned, Ezudar Shar Menachem Bar Yossi. Rabbi Menachem Bar Yossi dashed in the following thing. Ki ner mitzvah, the Torah are. Rabbi say, this is incredible. Ner mitzvah, literally again, so the pasuk compares a mitzvah to a ner. A ner is a candle. The Torah are. Torah is like light. Now I will say, when we speak about light, R usually refers to something which comes from a consistent light source, like the sun, like the moon. So therefore you have Torah, so mitzvah is compared ultimately again to a ner. Torah is compared to, I will say, what's the distinction? Listen to this. Tala hakasav es ha-mitzvah b'ner ves ha-Torah ba'ar. So the pasuk goes in and compares a mitzvah to a ner, to a candle, and compares Torah to light. Es ha-mitzvah b'ner lo malacha, to teach us that what? Why does it compare mitzvah to a ner? Man ner eina magina ela lefisha. Just like a candle only provides light for a limited amount of time. Af mitzvah eina magina ela lefisha. So to a mitzvah only protects for a limited amount of time. So we'll say, B'pashtos, what that means is, just like the candle only provides light when it's lit, so too again the mitzvah only provides protection when one is actively engaged in the performance of that mitzvah. That's Torah ba'ar, be it the Torah is compared to ar lomar lecha, ma'ar magin li olam, or meir li olam is changed to, right? Just like ar emits an eternal light, right? The sun, the moon are constant luminaries. Af Torah megina li olam. So Shabbos, the power of Torah is that Torah protects forever. I was saying incredible. Absolutely incredible. Torah protects forever. So let's analyze this. What else is incredible? Va'omer, bishalechacha tancha osach. Shabbos say pasuk in Mishlei. Right, so I want to say if you recognize that pasuk, right, we recite this at the end of every siyum. Bishalechacha tancha osach b'shach b'cha tishmar alecha v'akitzosa hitisichecha. So we'll say, what does this mean? Bishalechacha tancha osach. Literally, when you walk, it will guide you. When you walk, it will guide you. Now, I will say, we reference this in a siyum because we understand that this pasuk is actually a reference to Torah. Now, watch this, Rabbi. Listen how beautiful this is. When you walk, it will guide you. Now, I will say, it's not clear what the it is. Right? So, when you walk, it will guide you. What does that refer to? Zeh olam hazeh. Or is that the walking, the walking refers to this world. Tishmar alecha, it will watch over you. Zumisa, this refers to death. We'll say end of the first wide line. Vakitzosa hitisichecha. Literally again, when you awaken, it will be your conversation. What does that refer to? La'asad lavo. Right? Tchias hamesim, Yemos HaMashiach. So we'll say, what is this talking about? We'll say, get ready for this mashal. Absolutely magnificent. Second wide line, Chafalef Amad 21a. Mashali Adam Shay Mahalich Bi'ishon Laila. To what could this be compared? This could be compared to a man who's walking in the middle of the night. Right? Bi'ishon Laila va'afela. So we'll say, it's not just the middle of the night, but what? Pitch black. U'misyari min ha'kodsim, u'min ha'pchasim, u'min ha'barnikim. And obviously, again, he's afraid of what? He's afraid of the thorns. Ultimately, again, he's afraid of the pits, right? And he's afraid of all types of thistles. He's afraid of the things that could hurt him. Not only that, he's afraid of wild animals, and he's afraid of robbers. And to compound all of this, see, he's afraid of, right, the natural obstacles. He's afraid of robbers. He's afraid of wild animals. And to compound this, both say to compound this, what? He doesn't know where he's going. So not only is it pitch black, so he can't see what's out there, he doesn't know which direction he's going in. So we'll say, so what happens? We'll say, and obviously you understand the metaphor, right? You understand the metaphor. The metaphor, of course, being for the journey of life. That often we're in this world, we're in this olam hazeh, and I will say, I'm often walking in darkness. I'm walking in total darkness. And because I'm walking in darkness again, there are physical dangers of which I am unaware. And ultimately, again, there are spiritual dangers of which I'm unaware. And the most difficult part of the journey in this world is I don't know if I'm going in the right direction of life. I don't know if I'm headed down the right path or not. So what happens, Rabbi say? Suddenly again, someone gives me a torch. So I'll say, what does the avuka shel ar do? So what that does is, it saves me. I can see a little bit like the ground in front of me. So it saves me from the thorn bushes, and it saves me from the pits. Right? It saves me from all that stuff. And I will say, what's the torch? Look at Rashi. Nizdam lo avuka shel ar kach zakal kayim mitzvah nitza mimiktzas paranos. So I will say, the torch is a mitzvah. So a person engages in a mitzvah. What does a mitzvah do? A mitzvah gives you light. And what a mitzvah does is a mitzvah affords some level of protection. So suddenly, I'm not falling into pits. Suddenly, I'm not tripping over thorn bushes. So mitzvah gives me some amount of light. So I would say, and again, the light is, I can see the area immediately around me so that I'm not falling into pits, I'm not falling into thorn bushes. But what's the problem? But I still have to worry about wild animals and robbers. And also, and I don't know which direction I'm going in. And I will say, we're going to see over here the different pieces. So, right, the thorn bushes and the pits, that represents certain physical dangers. So a mitzvah has the ability to protect me from certain physical dangers. That's the light. But even if I'm safe from spiritual dangers, the Bible said, what am I safe from? The spiritual dangers, right? That's represented by the robbers and the wild animals. That's the Yetzer Hara. Those are the very forces which literally seek to spiritually derail me. So what happens? So even though I have the torch of the mitzvah, that helps to save me from some physical dangers, but I still have to worry about the spiritual dangers of life. So I'll say, and furthermore, I don't know where I'm going. Kevan Shalom Shachar, then the sun rises. I will say sunrise over here. Sunrise, it represents ultimately again Torah. I engage in the study of Torah. What does Torah do? Torah illuminates my world. I will say, and the study of Torah girds me with the spiritual strength to resist the Yetzer Hara. Kevan Shalom Shachar Nitzal Mechaya Ra Umina Listing. So we'll say the sun comes up, I engage in Torah, suddenly I have the ability to combat the thieves, right, the robbers, and the wild animals of life. So we'll say, is this not absolutely amazing? It's not absolutely amazing. So here we'll say, listen to the metaphor. I am this person in this world of darkness, and there are all of these dangers lurking around me. First thing, get your torch of mitzvahs. Engage in mitzvahs, because we'll say, what do mitzvahs do? Mitzvahs save me from the physical pitfalls of life. Engage in a life of mitzvahs, and it saves you from the thorn bushes and from the pits, the physical obstacles of life. Engage in Torah. And what does Torah give me? Torah is the torch that I carry with me. And where at Rose say, as long as you're holding that torch, what does the torch do? It keeps the robbers, the mitzvah is the torch, right? Call the torch of mitzvah and ultimately save yourself from the physical dangers of this world. Then I will say, but that's not enough. I need the sun of Torah. The light of Torah keeps away the listim and the chayes ras. Keeps away the Yetzer Hara. Right? Being steeped in Torah helps it. Again, it doesn't conquer the Yetzer Hara. I will say, what does it do? It keeps the Yetzer Hara at a distance. It keeps it at a distance. But I will say, what's the great challenge? I will say, right, even with the torch of mitzvahs, and even with the sunrise of Torah, I still don't know if I'm going down the right path of life. Am I headed in the right direction? So I will say, what happens? Once you get to the crossroads, nitzal mikulam, you're saved from everything. I will say, what are the crossroads? Take a look at Rashi. Higila Parshas Drachim. Rashi says over here, V'sham hekir es darko, v'afkan higia liyom hamisa. I will say, the only way, or the only moment you really know if you are on the right path in life is the day you leave this world. And I will say, the greatest challenge of life is, I never really know if I'm going down the right path. And I will say, just to understand this very nuanced idea, a person could lead a life of doing good things. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm on the path that's right for me. Right? This is the great challenge of the human condition. You could live a life filled with meisim tovim, mitzvahs, and Torah. It doesn't mean necessarily that you're doing all the things you're capable of accomplishing. And this is the great challenge in life. So now, I have the torch of mitzvahs, the sun is up, so right, so I'm Torah, have Torah, I'm keeping the Yitzhar, the Chayes Ras, listim at bay, and I still walk around with like this nagging question of, am I living the best life I can? Am I doing what I need to be doing? And I will say, that's the challenge of the human condition, and you really only know that until you get to crossroads. And when do you get to the crossroads? After 120. After 120, HaKadosh Baruch was standing at the crossroads to tell me, shkoyach, or great job, but. Great job, but. Right? Great job, but there could have been more. There should have been more. There could have been a different keyboard, a different direction. It's overwhelming. Davar achar, avera mechaba mitzvah ve'in avera mechaba Torah. Both say the possibilities, and avera has the ability to extinguish a mitzvah, but an avera doesn't have the ability. Both of I just want to tell you something. That Gemara that we just read, I think this is probably one of the most powerful Gemaras in all of Shas. This is a life Gemara. In other words, if you had a choice to learn one Gemara, and that's it, Chas v'Shalom, that's all the Gemara you have in life, that's it. Sotah, Chafalef, because we'll say, that's it. Get your torch of mitzvahs, get your sunrise of Torah, and recognize that you got to find your right direction, but you never really know until you get to the crossroads. To get to the crossroads, we'll say, that's life. That's life. Incredible. So the Gemara says that Avera has the ability to extinguish a mitzvah, but Avera can't extinguish Torah. Shnei Amar, Mayim Rabim lo yuchlu l'kabos es ha'ava. I will say even the great waters can't extinguish love. The love in this context, of course, is a reference to Torah. So we will say, because truth is, what does a Jew love in life more than Torah? Incredible. Rabbi Yosef, mitzvah be'ina da'asik ba. Migma, so further discussion, Rabbi Yosef says, a mitzvah, when you're actively engaged in it, migna umatzla. Rabbi Yosef, this lashon is very interesting. Migna umatzla. Rabbi Yosef, migna means it saves you from yisurin, from suffering, from negative physical events. Matzla means it saves you from the Yetzer Hara, right? From the evil inclinations, proclivities, wants, and desires of life. So Rabbi Yosef says like this: when you're performing a mitzvah, migna, it protects you from suffering. Umatzla, it saves you from the Yetzer Hara. Okay, so the Gemara says, Be'ina delo asik bei, but when you're not doing a mitzvah, in other words, what happens after the performance of the mitzvah? So I'm no longer doing it, but I have the schos. Agune migna, atzur le'umatzla. It saves you from suffering, but not from the Yetzer Hara. Well, isn't that incredible? Right, so a mitzvah could save you from suffering even after the performance, but it only saves you from the Yetzer Hara when you're actively performing it. Once it's done, it no longer saves you from the Yetzer Hara. I will say, we don't need a Gemara to tell us that. I know that, right? That's life. That's life, right? I know when I'm actively performing a mitzvah, I'm pretty safe from the Yetzer Hara. Once it's done, I might have the schus, might protect me from other things, but not from the Yetzer Hara. Torah, bein be'idna da'asik bei, bein de'idna lo asik bei, migna umatzla. But Rabbi Yosef posits Torah, the power of Torah, is that whether you're learning it or you're not learning it, it has the ability both to protect you from suffering and as well as from the Yetzer Hara. Maskif la Ravas, Mat Rabba, Rabba says, El me'ata, doeg v'achti tofel, milo aski v'torah, amaylo egina layu. So if that's the case, doeg v'achti tofel. Right, I'll say again, who are enemies of David HaMelech. They learned Torah. So ultimately, again, why did that not prevent them from making mistakes? To which the Gemara says, Lo, I'm sorry, be'idna to lo asik ba'aguni magna atzuli lo matzla mitzvah bein be'idna da asik be'in be'idna da lo asik ba'aguni magna atzuli lo matzla. So the Gemara now revises its position. A mitzvah, at most protects you from suffering, from yisurin, never protects you from Yetzer Hara. Incredible. Never protects you from Yetzer Hara. Rabbi Gemara says, Avina, I'm sorry, did I skip here? Yeah, I think I skipped, right? Yeah. Milo asik Torah, amaylo egina layu, ela amarava, sorry. Torah, be'ina da'asik ba, migna umatzla. So Rava says like this, Torah, when you're learning it, ultimately it protects you from suffering and from Yetzer Hara. Be'ina dalo asik ba, when you're not learning it, aguni migna, atzule lo matzla. Ultimately, we'll say even Torah, right? Torah, when you're learning it, ultimately again protects you from everything. When you're not learning it, it protects you from Yisurin, doesn't protect you ultimately again from the Yetzer Hara. So mitzvah, bein be'ina da'asik ba, bein de'idlo asik ba, agune migna, atzuri lamatzah. We'll say, but a mitzvah is less powerful, and a mitzvah at most only has the ability to save you from suffering, never has the ability to save you from the Yetzer Hara. Incredible. Ravina says, so I will say, just pointing out how you see this interesting machlokes about the power of Torah versus the power of mitzvos. And I will say one thing is absolutely clear, which is absolutely riveting to contemplate, that the power of Torah is more powerful than the Torah of a mitzvah, right? Which is fascinating, right? Because again, generally our whole conception of Torah, it's lilmod al menas la'asos, right? The whole point of Torah is in order to inform and to shape what you do. But yet, Rabbi say what you see over here is something so profound, that what you do is meaningless unless it's shaped and informed by Torah. So therefore, again, because of that, as much as the actional component is the ikar within Yiddishkeit, from an importance perspective, nothing is more important than Torah. Because without being grounded in the hashkafas of Torah, everything else I do is unanchored. And if it's unanchored, I run the risk of really getting myself in significant trouble. That's why from the perspective of Chazal, the Torah has a protective power that mitzvos never have, which is really an incredible idea to contemplate. Ravina says, we'll say, so remember again, how do we get into this whole thing? We're trying to figure out what zechus does the Sotah have that can offset or stave off the power of the waters. So Torah. In reality, we'll say back to what we said before, it's the zechus of Torah that has the ability to stave off the effects of the water. One second, we said, but a woman is not obligated to learn Torah. If a woman is not obligated to learn Torah, why is that the mitzvah that staves off the effects of the Rabbos? Listen to how beautiful this is. So I will say, ultimately, you're right. A woman is not obligated to learn Torah. Fine, that's fine. But listen to this, I will say, Be'igra, the mikrin umasnin benayhu. So I will say, in the schos, that literally, again, the mikrin umasnin benayhu, I will say, if you take a look at Rashi says, second wide line, the mikra masnin shetarchos al bneihem la'avin labeis hasefer likra mikra v'lishnos mishnah. In the schus that a woman often prepares her children to go off to learn Torah, right? She prepares them, right? Literally preparing them can mean everything from literally preparing them to taking them to picking them up to waiting for them. Right? Or as I will say, it's a plug for carpool over here, right? But the Maisa, right? In the merit of the mother going ahead and preparing and taking her children to learn, and ultimately again, and she waits for her husband to come home from the Beis Medrash. Milo palgan ba'adayu. Does she not receive a large portion of their schar as well? And I will say, what does this mean? So I will say, it's such a beautiful Gemara, and what it's telling you is the role of a Jewish woman in the Jewish home, which is that the Jewish woman is the enabler of the ruchnius of the home. She is the ultimate enabler. She is the one who creates the spiritual atmosphere for her children. She is the one who creates the spiritual atmosphere for her husband. She is the enabler. In general, the power of a Jewish woman in a home is that she's generally the enabler for every positive thing that happens in the home. But specifically here, the Gemara is making a reference or a focus on the ruchnius. She is the one that allows the Torah and the ruchnius of the children to actualize. She is the one who allows ultimately, again, the Torah and the ruchnius of her husband to actualize. So because she is the enabler, I will say, we've seen this many times in Chazal, that sometimes more than the merit you could accrue for yourself by doing something is becoming the enabler for other people's spiritual growth. When you become the catalyst for others around you, that compounds your own personalistic zechuyos. So the Gemara says something amazing. What zchus does the Sotah have? It's the zchus of Torah. But she's not obligated to learn Torah. It's not just simply talking about the zchus of the Torah she learns, but rather it's talking about the zchus of the Torah that she enables in the other members of her family. The zchus of the spirituality that she enables in her children, in her husband. That zchus is so powerful that it could even stave off the effects of the Sotah waters. I'll say, by the way, you'll say to yourself, but come on. If she's a Sotah, right? You'll say, remember again, who are we talking about over here? Who are we talking about over here? This woman is a Sotah. So now, you're telling me the Sotah has the zechuyos of spiritual enablement, is that a word? Spiritual enablement of her household? I'll say, come on, she's a Sotah. What's the answer? The answer is yes. They'll say, good people do very bad things. And good people make very poor decisions. And no, it's actually not a contradiction to have a woman who's a Sotah, but who's also the spiritual enabler of her family. Because sometimes good people get themselves into very bad spots. Sometimes very good people and very holy people still make very poor decisions. And it's not a contradiction. We'll say, we're all, each and every one of us is a living contradiction. Right? We do things that are good, and we do things that are really bad. And the hope is that the bad things that I do not in any way contradict or cancel out the good things that I'm currently doing. So you could have a woman who's a Sotah, but at the same time has done a great job enabling the spiritual growth of her family, and that's actually the schus that saves her in her time of need. Brothers, you know what the beautiful part about being a Jew is? That the Ribono Shel Olam, Ribono Shel Olam accepts our contradictions. He literally accepts our contradictions. And he understands our contradictions. And the great part is he's willing to give us the time and the space to work through those contradictions. The only thing he wants us to do is try to work through them. That's all. That's the only expectation. I understand you live with them. We're always going to live with them. Just try to work through them. Incredible. So the Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, good. So my Parshas Drachim, so we'll say beforehand, what's the Parshas Drachim? What's the crossroads we were talking about before? So the Gemara says, this refers to Talmud Chacham and the day of death. Also, we spoke about before that a Talmud, also so the crossroads represent death. A Talmud Chacham, Rashi says, no matter how great he is never above the possibility of sin until the day of death. It also says, Mishnah Avos, Al Tamin Ba'atzmecha Ad Yomosecha. Do not believe in yourself until the day of your death. Recognize a person is never above temptation, literally until they leave this world. This Talmud Chacham in Yirascheit. It will say that ultimately a Talmud Chacham, even after he has mitzvahs and even after he has Torah, is never fully secure in his spiritual identity until he has Yirascheit, until he develops this midah of a fear of sin. Marzutra Amar Zetam was in Lamar to talk about over here. Zetam Chacham Tisalka Lishmaita Liba Dehilchasa. Tam Chacham ultimately again who's finally privileged to have his rulings accepted halacha l'maisa. Davar achar Avera mechabe mitzvah, vein avera mechabe Torah. Both say an avera could extinguish a mitzvah, but an avera can never extinguish Torah. Incredible. Rabbi Yosef, Darsher Menachem Bar Yossi l'haikra ki Sinai. Rabbi Yosef said, Rabbi Menachem Bar Yossi darshened this pasuk like Sinai, really like it was expounded on Har Sinai. And had Doeg and Achitophel, right, two arch enemies of David HaMelech, darshened the pasuk this way. They would have never pursued David and made his life miserable. Dichsiv, Leimar Elokim Azavu. They say they have forsaken God. My drosh, Lo Yira B'cha Ervas Davar. Pasuk says you shall not engage in any matter of immorality. So I'll say, so again, they assumed that once a person engages in a matter of immorality, by definition, they've severed their relationship with Hashem. And they felt that because of the whole episode of David and Bathsheba, David HaMelech had no relationship with Hashem anymore. Why? Wow. We'll say, listen to this. And they never understood. It's true. An Avera could extinguish a mitzvah. Rabbi say, what could an Avera never extinguish? Torah. An Avera can never extinguish Torah. Rabbi say, the Torah you have is yours and yours forever. Rabbi say, switching gears. My Yavozulo. Rabbi say, what's the pasuk that it means? Literally, Boz Yavozulo. They will scorn him. What does that refer to? Amra Ula. This is both incredible Gemara. Lo Kishim Achi Azariah. V'lo Rabbi Yochanan de Benasiyah. Rabbi say, not like Shimon, the brother of Azariah, and not like Rabbi Yochanan and the house of the Nasi. Rabbi say, these represented synergistic partnerships, Yisachar Zvulun partnerships of people who are learning and other people who are successful in business, supporting those who are learning. And they were mutually beneficial. We'll say, sometimes we'll say, when people support learning, right? So the supporter things like, I'm doing such a tova, right? Look at me. Let's say, what the person doesn't realize is, when you're supporting someone in learning, I'll say, the supporter gets more out of this relationship than the one who is learning, or just as much out of the relationship than one who is learning. Because I want to say, when you support Torah, you get the zechus of Torah. So the Gemara points out over here, there are certain relationships where their supporter, we'll call it the Zavulun, the worker, recognized that he was getting as much out of this relationship as the Issachar, as the learner. Contrast that, ultimately again, about with Hillel. Right? Hillel v'Shavna. I will say ultimately again, Hillel and his brother Shavna. I will say, understand, Hillel was from Bavel, and he was from a very prominent Babylonian family. Very prominent Babylonian family. I will say, now understand, Hillel comes to Bavel to learn Torah, and what does his family say? What his family says is, if you leave here, you're out of the family. He left anyway. I will say, remember again, this is the famous story. Remember, how did Hillel learn Torah? By the skylight. Why was he by the skylight? Because remember again, he couldn't afford the entrance fee into this. He came from one of the wealthiest Babylonian families. I will say, they wrote him off. Now, we'll say, now what happens? There's a postscript to the story. Postscript to the story was, after Hillel became Hillel, guess who came out of the woodwork? His brother Shevna. And Shevna said, hey, please give me the schus to support you in Torah. Give you the schus to support you in Torah. Right? So we'll say, ultimately, again, what ends up happening? So the Gemara says, Shemna avariska, l'sof amalei ta, na'arov v'niflog. Let's go ahead and let's do a 50-50 split. Right? Shevna says, I'll give you money, you give me your schuyos. Yatzas habaska v'amra, im yitain ishes kol home base. So even if a person would go in and give all of the money of his home, the pasuk says, ultimately, again, right, boz yavozulo, they will still scorn him. So I said to Shevna, thank you, but too little, too late. Too little, too late. We'll say, by the way, there are a number of stories like this, right? A number of stories like this. Ultimately, again, you have, of course, the story of Rabbi Akiva, who had a very similar story as well. His father-in-law, Kalba Savua, totally wrote him off. After he becomes Rabbi Akiva, ultimately, Kalba Savua wants to go ahead and share his wealth. So we'll say, it's an incredible, there's so many lessons from the story. I will say that I think for us, the major takeaway is if you want greatness in Torah, you have to be ready to sacrifice something. Right? Greatness in Torah does not come by having your cake and eating it too. Right? Greatness in Torah only comes by willingness to sacrifice. Hillel was willing to sacrifice. Rabbi Akiva was willing to sacrifice. So we also have to sacrifice. Now, I don't think it means for us that you have to go away and sacrifice your money. I think for us what it often means is I have to sacrifice the taivas, the desires that are holding me back. I have to sacrifice, again, the forms of worldly engagement that are not good for me. Those are the things I have to sacrifice. But greatness in Torah only comes to those who are willing to give up the things which are holding them back. Incredible. We'll say, Amar Beis, Amar Ben Azai, Chayiv Adam L'Lamed. Rabbi Eliezer will call it, Hamlamed is Bito Torah Malam the Tiflos. And we'll say, remember again, then the Mishnah kind of segued into a very interesting discussion about teaching one's daughter Torah. Right? So we'll say, interestingly enough, Ben Azai said, a person should teach his daughter Torah. Well, now, why did Ben Azai say this? So we'll say, there's really two ways of looking at it. Either because this way she'll have the schus of Torah, and ultimately, again, I will say, kind of tying this all together, if a man teaches his daughter Torah, she'll recognize the importance of Torah. If she recognizes the importance of Torah, then what? Then she'll become the spiritual enabler of her family. Right? I will say, if a woman doesn't know the importance of Torah, how could she be expected to become the spiritual enabler of her family? Right? I only know the importance of something if I'm taught it, if I'm exposed to it. If I don't know it, so Ben Azai says, teach your daughter Torah. Teach your daughter Torah. This way, again, first of all, she becomes conversant and she becomes knowledgeable, which is important even if she does not have an obligation. Second of all, she comes to appreciate it. And if she appreciates it, then Emirat Hashem, one day when she has a home of her own, she will want to instill this in her children, in her husband. She will become the enabler of other people's spiritual growth, which is greater than your own spiritual growth is becoming the enabler of other people's. Let's say very quickly, the Netziv says about Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was promised that he will have descendants, like the stars of the sky, like descendants. Did it ever happen for Avraham Avinu? Did it ever happen? Did it ever happen? Not directly, but Avraham Avinu becomes the enabler for spirituality in the world. We'll say, who is the father of spirituality in the world? Who is the father of all spirituality in the world? Of the three major faiths? It's Avraham Avinu. It's Avraham Avinu. When Hashem says you're going to be, your descendants will be like the stars in the sky, means Avraham Avinu, you are the enabler of universal, of global spirituality. That was the schos of Avraham Avinu, to be the enabler of spiritual growth. So Ben Azai says, teach your daughter Torah. How else is she going to be an enabler if she doesn't understand? And I will say on a very limited level, what Rashi in the Mishnah also said was teach her Torah, because if Chas V'Shalom one day she's a Sotah and the waters don't work on her, she'll understand it's not that they're not working on her, it's that what? Their effect have been delayed because Chos Tolala. So we'll say conversely, Eliezer says no. Whoever teaches his daughter Torah, it's like he teaches her immorality. What does that mean? Tiflus Sachadaitra Elaima Ki'ilu Lamda Tiflus. It's as if he has taught her immorality. We'll say, look at Rashi, Ki'ilu Shemitocha Hi Mevina Armumis Va'usa Devareh Batzneya. This is very interesting. There is a byproduct of learning Torah which is fascinating, which is what? It teaches you a little bit of cunning skills. I will say, what does this mean? So I will say, you know what the best part of it? We've all had this in our own lives. I would say an interesting skill set is developed through learning. What's the interesting skill set? You can rationalize almost anything. Right? I would say it is We're going to put this in the advertising material for Daf Yomi in the future, right? Come to the Daf, and you could actually rationalize. You could touch up pretty much anything you actually want to do in life. First of all, you'll almost find the shita for anything, right? You can find an opinion to support pretty much anything. And Lamaisa, with a good lumdish cup, right? With a good head for learning, you can rationalize a whole bunch of stuff. So there is, so it's interesting. It's like anything in life. Anything positive comes with a potential spiritual downside. That's the way it works. That's wherever there's Yaakov, there's Esau, right? Wherever there's Torah, there's Tumah. That's always like that. So there is a certain danger that comes about with learning. So Rabbi says, so interestingly enough, Rabbi Lezer is concerned about that danger. He says that perhaps a girl, perhaps a woman, a girl possesses a certain level of just, innocence is the wrong word, but almost like a straightforwardness. I don't know what the right word is. I call it straightforwardness. And Torah kind of injects you with a little bit of this ability to rationalize. And that's dangerous. I'll say it's an incredible idea. Sometimes there is something to be said, ultimately again, for just being a straightforward person who does not get wrapped up in all of the intellectual analysis of everything. I will say, no, don't just sometimes crave for that. But say, the best thing sometimes that I love learning is, especially like when you want to get your head straight, is when you open up like the most esoteric piece of Chassidus. I say, you open it up, you read it, and you plug away at it for like 15, 20 minutes, half hour, and then you look at it and you realize, I have no idea what it's talking about, but it's the best feeling in the world. Why? Because I will say sometimes the greatest spiritual moments are not the ones you use your intellect, but it's the ones in which you use your heart. And so the Torah is beautiful. But Torah gives you all the tools of intellectual analysis. And the truth is, to be very honest, those aren't always my greatest saviors in life. Right? Those aren't always the greatest things. Sometimes being a Pashat Yid, being a simple Jew, is the best thing. So therefore you see this tension. Amar Rabbi Avo says, my time to Belazar Tichsiv, Ani Chachma. So what's it quotes over here, the Pasuk, Ani Chachma, Shachanti Arma. So I'll say literally it says, Ani Sharai, Keva Shenichnes Chachma Ba'adam, once wisdom enters into a person, ultimately, Nichneses Imo Armumius. Ultimately, there's a certain cunning nature that has entered the person as well. So I'll say this is important to understand, right? Lamai says something really incredibly profound. That as incredible as Torah is, as beautiful as Torah is, understand it complicates us. Utilization of the intellectual faculties is beautiful and is a gift. But it's important to understand sometimes it really does create difficulties in life. Rabbanan, Hi Ani Chachma, my abdi. What did the Rabbanan ultimately do with this Ani Chachma? Rabbi Chanina, a different Torah miskaimin. Ella b'mi shema'amid atzmo arum aleim. So Rabbi say the Rabbanan who say no, it's good to learn Torah, it's good to teach your daughters Torah. What do they do with this pasuk? They say arum doesn't mean cunning. How the Rabbi say what does arum actually mean? Like it says, arum means unclothed. They'll say if a person wants excellence in Torah, they have to make themselves arum. What does it mean? Rashi says, shepirish mikol asakim. Sometimes you have to divest yourself of everything else when you're learning. Rabbi say on a global level, what this can mean is that Allah might say you want excellence in Torah. Rabbi say excellence in Torah comes from singular dedication to learning. Rabbi say you could look at this on a global level and say yes, if somebody wants to become excellent in Torah, they have to focus on that, and that'll Rabbi say, I think for our purposes, what it also means is like this. We speak about this often. Rabbi say, if you want to maximize your learning experience, eliminate distractions. And Rabbi say, this is true if you're learning for 5 minutes, if you're learning for 25 minutes, you're learning for 45 minutes, learning for 3 hours, whatever amount of learning you're doing, be present, be arum, be unclothed from every single other distraction. If you make yourself, I will say we know this, whenever you do something and you're distracted, you get about 65% of the experience. It doesn't matter if it's your learning, if it's your meeting, if it's your family time, whatever it is. If you are distracted, you're getting maybe 65% of the entire experience. So the Rabbanon will say, Vani chachma shachanti arema. If you want chachma, you want Torah, when you are with it, right, when you are engaged, be arum. Go ahead and remove everything else from yourself. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. So I'll say, right, you know what, we'll stop over here for today. We're stopping in the middle. So again, I also want to, we're right on schedule, but I just want to mention, we're going to come back a little bit tomorrow to some of this concept of Talmud Torah by women as well, because this is a very big discussion, especially a contemporary discussion. We'll try to, tomorrow's a shorter daf, Meretz Hashem. We'll start again at 5:15, Meretz Hashem, so we'll get a couple of more minutes, and we'll catch up. I'll say, what a schus, shkoyach. All right, Chevra Zoom, have a great day, everyone.